Hotel workers, what is your craziest story? Story 1. Cleaning rooms one summer, entered checkout guest's bathroom, and noticed rolled up towels on the floor, pretty common. I start picking them up, hidden underneath, pile of human shit. I open the shower curtain as I begin to smell an overpowering stench of shit. I find at least 10 dumps in the shower, mixed with piss. The toilet, clean as duck. Doesn't look like it was even used. I quit that day. Story 2. Some guest was in the parking lot, waving a gun around, and threatening to shoot up the place, resulting in a tense standoff with cops for about an hour, before they finally took him down, alive. The impetus behind the whole thing. He, his buddy, and the buddy's wife had gone out that night with the intent that the wife was gonna let the gun guy duck her up the ass, but she got cold feet at the last minute and they locked him out of the room when he got mad. So, yeah, he was so drunk and wanted to tap that ass so badly that he decided to threaten the whole hotel. Story 3. I have a friend that owns a small motel just off a highway. I would hang out with him and chat on some late nights. One night, he got a call that one of the guests heard a loud crash in the room next door. Checked the computer and saw that the room was unoccupied. Friend and I go to check it out. We knock and there is no answer. He opens the door and there was a cat in the room. It knocked over a lamp and smashed it. It was super friendly and came right to us. We took it back to the office and looked at the room records. The prior person that was in the room abandoned the cat when he checked out 3 days earlier. He was already on the other side of the country when we called him, and he said he was not coming back for the cat. My friend took ownership of the cat and now she is the motel cat. She walks all around the property and takes care of any mice or critters. She even has her picture on the wall as one of the employees. Not sure why the maid service did not see it when the room was being cleaned. We think that the vacuum scared the cat and she hid somewhere. Still was a dick move of the old owner to leave the cat behind. Story 4. High-strung cook had an argument with A-type bistro attendant. It just kept escalating to a pull-apart brawl when a kitchen knife got involved. The pair crashed through the swinging door and was rolling on the carpet when the regional manager just happened to be walking in. Cops were called. I think both got fired or arrested. Story 5. When I was 15 I was a busboy at a local resort, Little America, Cheyenne, Wyoming. Occasionally, the restaurant I worked in would ask one of the bus staff to deliver room service to one of the rooms. They always ask male staff for safety reasons. On one occasion I was asked to deliver a tray to a room. I took the tray to the room and a scantily clad woman answered the door. I never went in the room, but could see there were about 8 to 9 men and women in their 60s 70s, almost all of them nude, in the room. Even at 15 I knew the room smelled like Shrek's. I remember I was tipped well. Went back to work. No one ever asked how things went, and I never really mentioned it to anyone because I didn't think anyone would believe me. Story 6. I used to work at a hotel. I post on these guests often, and I always intend on doing so. 3 guests come to mind. Guests wiped in the towels, smeared it on the walls, and laughed at housekeeping when they came in for service. Young lady, who was certainly no lady, stuck her used tampon on the bathroom wall. The blood acted as a glue and cemented itself there. It had to be pried off. Guests left 3-week-old expired milk in the fridge. But they were only in-house for 3 days, so that means it was already 2.5 weeks expired when they checked in. Who lugs around rotten milk? Story 7. Working at a small boutique place, just starting my day shift at about 6:30 am. Hadn't even had my coffee yet. A woman came to the desk, visibly shaken. She tells me I can't find my husband. He's not in the room, and all his clothes are still there. He's a sleepwalker and I'm worried that he has wandered into another room. At this point I start to chuckle a bit to myself, but quickly stop with the thought of a screaming woman finding a naked stranger in her room. First thought is to check the CCTV. We head up to the first floor. Our CCTV is actually in the back of our linen storage, and I bring the woman with me, not even sure why I did, probably because she wanted to come. Soon as I got the door open and the lights on, there was her naked husband sleeping spread across our bundled duvet covers, with one open half covering him. She woke him up, and of course he had no ducking idea where he was. She wrapped him up and took him back to bed. They checked out later, and the dude was bashful as hell. I told him not to worry about it as he gave me a great story to share, and let him know I would tell anyone who would listen. And I plan to. Story 8. Lots of hotel guests were in for a conference. One night, about 10:30 p.m., a guy walks down from his room to the bellhop desk in nothing but tightly wheelers, a bedsheet wrapped around his body from head to toe, and blood dripping from his face. This guy sounded out of it, either from being concussed, inebriated, high on drugs, or a mix of the three. He informed security that he and his boyfriend got into a fight. So, 2 security officers, one a supervisor, went to the room to question the other boyfriend, while another security officer waited with the bloodied boyfriend behind the bellhop desk for an ambulance to arrive. Up at the room, security was informed that the bloodied boyfriend had been passed out drunk and had crapped in one of the beds when the other boyfriend had walked into the room with his wife and 2 kids, all of whom had been enjoying a night on the town. Both men were coworkers who were in for the conference. Supposedly, the family man had given the suite room key to his boyfriend with the expectations that they'd do the deed during conference hours, all the while the wife and kids explored the city during the day. Back at the bellhop desk, the security supervisor relays the discovered info to the bloodied boyfriend, which sets the guy off. He tackles the security supervisor to the ground. Blood and crap stained the hotel carpet in the supervisor's suit as he finally cuffed the bloodied boyfriend. Cops are called, and the guy gets taken away before getting inspected by medics. The moral of the story: if you want to cheat on your wife with someone else in a hotel, do your business in the smaller, uglier room, and not the large expensive suite you share with your family. Story 9. This kind of counts. It wasn't a short-term stay hotel, but was built like one, and I was a doorman. I have a few stories from that place. I used to work as a doorman in an apartment complex populated by a number of odd characters. One of them was a woman who was schizophrenic. She lived there on rent assistance and got disability payments. Generally when she was taking her medications she was still a full bubble off level. Her delusions were all religion based, with demons and her neighbors casting spells on her through the walls. She cut up the walls and floor with a knife to try to stop the spells. That sort of thing. But every 6 months she needed to get evaluated to keep her assistant's checks coming. The way this should work is that the caseworker would stop in, see that she is taking her meds, she isn't too crazy, check the box, she keeps the assistance. But she didn't see it that way. If the caseworker saw her acting normal, then the caseworker might think she is cured and didn't need the assistance. So she would go off the meds for a few days and then would have an episode. One day she comes to the lobby to tell me that when she was in the elevator, Satan raped her in her ass with his tail. I checked the elevator. No Satan, no ectoplasm, no readings on the PKE meter. So then I asked her if she was maybe raped by a man on the elevator. Given the type of residents we get, rapists, mother rapists, father stabbers, father rapists, litterbugs who create a nuisance, it was entirely possible. It took a while, but she told me that it was the actual, red-colored Satan with pitchfork, horns, and pointy tail, and it was the actual Satan's tail that raped her in her ass, and she needs to go to the hospital, because now she has a demon inside her. So I had to call for an ambulance. Before the EMS crew shows up, 2 cops arrive. One is super annoyed to have to be there. And he is even more annoyed that his partner seems genuinely interested to hear about Satan and the demons and the neighbors casting perverted Shrek spells through the walls to make her horny. EMS arrives and they bring in a gurney and set it up. They take her vital signs and tell her that they will take her to the Catholic hospital. The ambulance company probably is getting money for certain referrals, so they are insisting on Catholic. She wants to go to the Jewish hospital, which is not only larger but much closer. There is a standoff between her wanting to go to Jewish and the crew wanting to go to Catholic. Normally the patient's wishes should be honored, but the EMS crew does not want their boss reaming them over the missed kickback. Finally, the paramedic says you got raped by Satan and you have a demon in you, right? Well, then we need to go to Catholic, because Jews don't know anything about removing demons and the Catholics do it all the time. So she says okay, and jumps up on the gurney. A couple days later, she is on her meds again. The caseworker gets to see her crazy episode and the checks keep coming for another 6 months. Teenagers in the apartments decided they needed to join gangs. So they set up their own local one, Abe Crips and Bloods. They put on blue vs red flannel shirts and t-shirts. Then they had a fight. They used pepper spray on each other. The front door opens, and in runs a kid in a red shirt, and the back door opens, and in runs a kid in a blue shirt. They have tears and snot running down their faces from the pepper spray. I'm stuck standing between them as they face off. I just moved out of the way and say go at it. And they both got in the same elevator to run home to mom. About the middle of the night a naked woman goes off the 9th floor balcony. I was the first one there and watched her die. She took a few agonal breaths and there was nothing anyone could do as she was pulverized inside. The story was that she and her boyfriend were into bondage games, which is fine, but he woke up to see she had used a bedsheet to hang herself from the balcony with the other end tied to the leg of a couch. He cut the bedsheet with a butcher knife to save her from hanging, but she fell. She did have a corner of a cut bedsheet around her neck and a loose half hitch. It is hard to believe his story, but he was not charged. Story 10. We hosted a waste management company's holiday party. They had an open bar for like 200 plus garbage men. One of them got incredibly drunk, wandered into the kitchen, and decided to smash all the plates he could find, and other various things. Found him in the morning, passed out naked in a stairwell. We also had an elevator that just went between the 2 meeting room floors. It was tiny and was a piece of shit that was super slow, and you were only supposed to have like 5 people at a time in it. Indian weddings are very popular at that hotel, and one time during a wedding a good 12 people or so decided to cram into this tiny elevator. It got stuck between floors for like an hour with all these folks stuffed in there against each other. The hotel finally decided to renovate the elevator after that. Also, this hotel has a lot of genuine art and historical pieces, like baby grand pianos, statues, and old original paintings. Once the upstairs kitchen pipes got clogged, which ended up in a massive leak of disgusting, nearly black colored, and horrible smelling water bursting through the ceiling into the lobby. A good amount of that water splashed onto the 200-year-old paintings they had hung up. Had a noise complaint once about a couple having gratuitous Shreks in their hotel room, so security had to go ask them to keep it down. Turns out the room in question was the head planner's room for one of our repeat conferences. She was banging the company's married COO. She was pretty attractive, though. The houseman punched a hole in the wall of the back hallway and would steal beer from the bars and hide them in the hole to drink when they worked late. They liked younglings, so it'd pretty often be chingy-lingy time. I'm sure there's plenty more I'm missing or aren't worth typing out. I'm glad I got out of hotels. Story 11. One of my friends who runs events does a lot of business with hotels. He's always got stories of how hotels handle stuff, and it's insane what they go through. The one that sticks in my head is that some function had some huge event, not sure what for, but their main ceremony hired a stage magician. I'm not sure what they expected, but they got some guy who looked a lot like the Tim Burton version of Willy Wonka. Long hair, a little effeminate, velvet suit, and very awkward. I'm not sure what they asked him to do, but what he did on stage was very odd for a main ceremony. He did a few parlor magic tricks before going into a very long story about how he learned how to hypnotize people to do his bidding from some descendant prodigy of Franzant and Mesmer himself. He claimed to have learned Sanskrit chanting or something from the wisdom of Himalayan monks, and to show his skill, he preferred young ladies in the audience. The people who hired him were immediately alarmed in the direction this was going, but were unable to make the immediate decision to stop whatever it was that he was doing via the classic bystander effect. Isn't someone going to say something? Is this part of the act? He's running long. Thankfully, it seemed all he wanted to do was standard hypnosis stage tricks, and if you have heard of some generic hypnotist act in TV sitcoms, that's all he did. When I snap my fingers, you think you are a chicken, etc. He was scheduled to do 2 15-minute segments, but after his first went into an hour, before he gave the stage back, they asked him not to do part 2 because they were now way behind the schedule. But everyone was in a weird mood, because a few coworkers had, for a few minutes, pretended they were chickens or whatever. I don't know exactly what he did. I'm telling this secondhand. All I know is that he was already on thin ice. The worst part is the part that involved the hotel. The magician assumed for some reason that he could hang around and mingle with the rest of the crowd after the main ceremonies. There was more than one event at the hotel happening that night, and one was a prom, or costumed cotillion for a young women's private school. Lot of teen girls in costumes and floofy dresses. The magician was seen mingling and flirting with these girls, and the chaperones came to the hotel to have him removed because he was being creepy. The hotel went to the group who had run the other function, but they said, "We are not in charge of him." Yes, we hired him. He did his weird thing, and he's not really with us as we're done. Everyone involved had a vibe this guy was super creepy, and the group was okay with the hotel telling him he had to leave. So the hotel went to this guy, and he at first said he'd go, but then didn't. So the hotel got forceful about it, saying that if he didn't leave, he was considered a trespasser. So he applied for a room at the hotel, so he wouldn't be a trespasser. They refused to give him a room, saying they received complaints about his behavior. Then, rather suddenly, he had a toddler-level meltdown at the front desk. Like threw himself to the floor, wailing in a high-pitched voice that he was being discriminated and his rights were being violated. Then the hotel had enough of this guy and called security. Security was unable to deal with it as he wouldn't get off the floor and he was making a huge scene. So they called the police. The moment the police arrived, he got up and ran away, so the overweight and not very athletic cops chased him, but they lost him in the hotel for about an hour, until a chaperone from the cotillion said he was hiding under a catering table at their function, looking up girls' dresses. So the police went into there, and the guy ran out the fire exit, causing the alarm to go off. My friend who tells this story said the guy sprinted across the hotel parking lot without swinging his arms at all. They stayed pinned to his sides as he ran to the very edge of the parking lot near a patch of woods. When he retells this account, he shows what he means, and it's hilarious, like a prancing Irish step dancer running with unmoving arms. He assumed that, mere feet away from the hotel property, taunting that he was not trespassing, and thus the police could not arrest him. His challenged assumption disintegrated when the out-of-breath police immediately tackled him. The cops hauled him into a squad car while he wailed in tongues, saying he had cursed them all in accordance with his Himalayan street knowledge. Then they took him away, and no one knows what happened to him. Story 12. I worked night shift, and was the only employee in the entire hotel from 11 PM to 6 AM. Around 3 AM I get a few calls about a fight in an upstairs hallway. I grab a pair of scissors and tuck it up my sleeve and make my way upstairs to see what is going on. When I get there are two guys having a full-on brawl. I'm 6,2 and very broad-shouldered, but these guys were taller and ripped as hell. As I approached, a third guy, just as large as the other two, comes out of a room with a knife yelling, "Get the duck off him." I stop a ways away and just shout at them. They all stop immediately and look at me. I'm getting ready to run for it when they all just deflate. Knife guy drops the knife, the others let go of each other, they all hang their head, and one mumbles "I'm sorry" under his breath. They looked like a bunch of toddlers who had just gotten caught stealing cookies. I told them they would have to leave right now, or I would call the police, and they all just nodded. They followed me onto the elevator and spent the whole time apologizing and pouting while I escorted them out. I have never seen a situation go from 100 to 0 so fast. Story 13. My first job was houseman at a hotel. I was 14 and had the job of basic maintenance and that guy that would come plunge your toilet. I had to clean up poop and condoms. The worst were hockey teams. First things first, it was my very first day. My very first job. My first task was to vacuum the pool area. As I got started, a team of like 16 to 17-year-olds came in. They were a volleyball team. They made me extremely nervous because every one of them was hot. I kept vacuuming and was pissed off because there was no suction, so I looked like an idiot. The whole time the hose had disconnected itself from the power head and was latched to my pants by my ankle. I did that for at least 20 minutes before realizing. They kept giggling, with me thinking they dig me, but no, I was vacuuming my ankle the whole time. A guy called from one of the executive suites saying his TV didn't work, so I went up there and pulled back the giant unit that held the TV, and behind it was a bunch of porn magazines. I'm 14, so this is huge for me. I said I have to take these to management. I ended up storing them in a storage unit with a bunch of toilet paper, towels etc, and would go help myself whenever I wanted. I also found out that, while the hotel was 5 stories high, there was another set of stairs to go up to the roof. There was a nice landing at the top of those stairs, so I'd grab a blanket and pillow from said storage room and make my way up there and nap until my radio went off. I'd likely just have to plunge a toilet then go get lunch or supper at cost, so like 15 wings for $8, and they were huge. Good job, good times. Manager sucked though. Story 14. I have the most boring one in the thread. One night when I was a doorman / concierge, I had to bring up luggage to a guest's room. I knock on the door and it's 3 guys and 1 girl in there. They have red Solo cups and a big ass bottle of Grey Goose. He asks me to join them and I politely decline. He is persistent, but I stood firm. I'm trying to excuse myself and he digs in his pocket to tip me, but only has $100 bills. I say that's fine, don't worry, but he says no, don't go anywhere. Then he opens up the room safe and grabs a handful of candy and gives it to me with a wink. I thank him and gtfo. In the elevator I got a closer look and realized it was a handful of Jolly Rancher candies with THC. Story 15. Was just about to start my shift in the morning and was chatting with a coworker outside while she had a smoke. It was still dark out, and out of nowhere this guy muttering something about his dead family came up to us with a 2x4 and raised it up to hit my coworker in the head. I just reacted and stepped between them and raised my arm to take the blow, and the guy just stopped mid-swing. He was face to face with me with this 2x4 raised baseball bat style, and then he just ran off and dropped it. My coworker ran up and grabbed it after, so he cold juiced it again, and when we brought it inside, that's when we realized it was full of nails. Very glad neither of us got hit with that. I have plenty of other crazy stories, but that one takes the cake for the scariest for sure. Story 16. Don't work at a hotel, but I have a story from a hotel my wife and I stayed at. This was a while back when money was super tight, so on this trip we got what we could afford. From the looks of the parking lot it looked like it's where building contractors stayed when working out of state. Lots of work trucks. At the time I had a new GPS and my wife the night before said, bring that in just in case someone breaks in and steals it. Anyway, it was a nice stay and all, but around 8 AM we hear, hey, what are you doing, mother ducker? We peeked out the window and there are 2 guys fighting, and one guy was beating the ever-loving shit out of the other, like there is blood flying. The victor got into a work truck and hauled ass out of there. We hung out in the room another hour or so not to be a part of that. Go to check out the guy that got beaten is standing outside of the main office with another guy standing over him keeping him from leaving. The guy was clearly bleeding, wiping it up with a towel. The victor shows up with a cop behind him. Even though we checked out, we parked nearby. So the story we heard was the victor happened to look out his window and see that other guy getting into his truck and stealing tools off the truck. Caught him and beat his ass. The guy standing with the thief was a coworker of that guy that laid the smack down, keeping the thief from running off till a cop showed up. The guy's truck was parked 2 spaces down from ours. The cops took down the info and arrested the guy that was still bleeding profusely and left. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily videos.